About 2 minutes into my talk, my Mac froze. Beach ball. The only solution was to reboot the Mac on stage in front of 3,000 people. Both of the aspects of a powerful talk, content and delivery. So that's the first distinction that's useful to make. If somebody's delivering earth-shattering content, but they're doing it in a very boring or amateurish way, I'll really try and stay with them. Whereas if somebody is delivering vapid nonsense and they're doing it brilliantly, it's just irritating. I think you have to think that content has to come first. It's no good being a genius orator if you're saying nonsense. So you have to think about what it is you're going to say to people. And I love the visualization of giving a gift, the best ever gift that you could ever imagine giving to like a 6-year-old for their birthday. And the feeling that you have as you're giving that gift to them, wrapped up, and you know how much they're going to love it, that is the feeling you need to have when you walk on stage to talk to an audience, whether it's 50 people or 5,000, doesn't make any difference. If you're giving a gift, and you should be, otherwise what are you doing there?
Yeah. Then
that's what to focus on. It's not about you. It's not about approbation. It's not about, am I going to look stupid? It doesn't matter. What matters is the gift and giving the gift to them. So once you've got that clear and you have a gift, and I train people on how to design that gift so that it's appropriate for the audience and so forth, then it comes down to the delivery. And I talk about the vocal toolbox in that TED talk that went completely ballistic, the different aspects of speaking, which most people don't think about. I said at the beginning of that talk, the human voice, it's the instrument we all play. And it is. It's an instrument. Would you go on stage at Carnegie Hall to give a piano recital having never had a lesson or practiced? I don't think so. So just in the same way, why would you go on stage or stand in front of a room and use this instrument having never had a lesson or practiced? And yet, I'll do talk. I did a talk a couple of months ago in Copenhagen to like 3,000 chief execs and senior managers. And I always ask the same question. How many of you use your voice in your work? Importantly, for how many of you is your voice a really critical tool that you use? They all put their hand up because they do media interviews, they stand up in front of teams, they have to pitch to investors, whatever it is, and the voice is critical. Okay, good. How many of you have had formal vocal training? About 1% generally is the answer. In any room, in any audience, it's always the same sort of proportion, about 1%. 1 in 100 people have actually gone out and had some training for their voice. Well, this is crazy. If the voice is important to you, go get some training. Work on it. I did. And, people often say, oh, that talk was so good, or I've just seen you talk and you're so grounded and confident. And training. It's training. I was not like this when I was 10 years old. And although some people are naturally gifted, maybe there's some talent that's innate involved, whatever, you can get trained. Wherever you start, you can climb the mountain and become an excellent speaker by training. So I talk about PPD, practice, prepare, and deliver. Practicing the skill of public speaking. If you want to be a good public speaker, you have to practice. It's just like if you want to be a good driver or, a good cyclist or a good pianist, you don't get there by just sitting looking at the thing. You actually have to go and do it and practice. So that's the first thing. And then preparing, there's a great deal. I've had almost everything that ever could go wrong in my talks. Actually, I did a talk 2 weeks ago in Sicily and forgot to pack a belt. And my trousers were literally on the point of falling down on the morning of the talk. So I actually had to jump in the car and go to a shoe shop and buy a belt because I thought to myself, that's one thing that's never happened to me is my trousers actually falling down as I'm on stage in front of people. But I can do without that one. So, but pretty much everything else that could go wrong has gone wrong over the years. I mean, I've been speaking on stages for decades. And so I know how to preclude most of those things, how to make sure that they're not going to happen. And that's how I train people. So preparing is very important. Preparing the talk and, in the venue and understanding how to make that work very well. And then it's about delivery. And that's, it's like an Olympic athlete. You practice, you prepare for the event, and then they call it execute. I think deliver is a nicer word. So that's, once you've practiced and prepared, of course, it becomes much easier to deliver. My very first TED talk, which was about the four effects of sound, nobody had ever used sound in a TED talk before, so they were quite excited about it. And we had a rehearsal the night before. But before that, I'd done that talk probably 30 or 40 times to my daughter Alice, who was then about 10, I think. And so she was my audience sitting on a sofa. I had the TV screen behind me being the big screen at TED, and I had my clicker and my computer, and I ran it and ran it and ran it until it was completely in my DNA. Now, that is not in order to replicate an exact facsimile. That is so that I can jazz. And that's what it is all about to me. Great public speaking is not reading a thing or memorizing the words of a thing, because then you get hooked up in that mechanism. If you're reading it, you're looking down, you don't look at the audience. That's not good. And if you've memorized it, there's the terror of losing your thread, the chain breaking. And there's the effort of always, a part of your brain is going, what comes next? What have I got to, what's that bit next? There's something in the way. What I love is, just like a jazz band would be, they know the chords well enough that they can improvise. That is the way I see public speaking. And that to me is great public speaking, where you know the tune well enough that you can stand there and improvise. So it's not the same every time. It comes out different depending on the relationship you have with the audience, or how you feel, or, what you want to emphasize that day. And that is a beautiful place to be, because you can really focus on interrelating with the audience, that connection that you have with them, and making it work in that way. And it's being generated by you in real time, from the heart. It's happening as people see it. And that is great public speaking.
It reminded me of my first ever speech. It was like maybe 25 years ago. I had to speak at the Euromoney conference. And I remember that I had a recorder. So I spoke my speech to the recorder, and then I would listen. And I did that the whole night until I listened to the voice. And I said, okay, that's fine. I can accept that. That sounds great. But I remember that. I remember very clearly. It was the first. And when I did my TEDx talk, I only have one. I prepared and I did everything, and I got on the stage and I start talking and the microphone doesn't work. And people start, we don't hear. And it's the worst, because you're out there, delivering your best. And then I had to go back. And then they switched on the microphone. And then I cracked a joke. I can't remember what I said, but everybody laughed. And the second time was even better, because all the pressure has gone. It just disappeared. So I just went on the scene and I was just going. It was very good.
And often it is the case that when things go wrong, it gets people on your side, and it makes it more memorable. I mean, I've seen many people on the TED stage dry when they try to do a memory palace, or that, they have a chain in their head and they break it and they lose their place and they go red and it look flustered and it all looks a disaster. What happens? The audience start to applaud every single time. It's what happens. People start clapping and saying, we're with you, don't worry about it, it's fine, we're patient. And so I mean, again, in that talk in Copenhagen, I can tell you I had an incident about 2 minutes into my talk about leaders and listening and so forth. My Mac froze, beach ball, completely froze. the only solution was to reboot the Mac on stage in front of 3,000 people. And it's not ideal, you know. Now, fortunately, the compere, who was a very nice lady, came on stage and said, "Do you know, I saw you speak in Geneva 20 years ago, and I still remember it." And we had a little chat about that while I was rebooting the computer and getting everything back up. And so got it back up, got the keynote back up. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on. Big round of applause. Shook hands with her and said, "Thank you so much," and carried on in a very kind of sanguine way. And so many people came up to me afterwards and said, "Do you know, it was the best talk of the event because of the way you handled that nightmare." If you expect things to go wrong, it's not terrible. You know, I'm a big fan of being honest about what's actually happening, not pretending it's not happening, not pretending it shouldn't happen, because it did. And just dealing with, do you know what? My computer's frozen. I can't believe it would do this in front of all of you. I probably said something like that and laughed. And, you know, there's a connection there because they can all identify with, oh my goodness, thank goodness it's not me having that happen to me.